like to welcome you all to the 30th Anniversary Gala, honoring the vision of former First Lady Rosalind Carter and the far-reaching accomplishments of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving over the past 30 years. Being here tonight, sharing this celebratory evening with you is truly an honor. I was at the airport a couple days ago, standing in front of the baggage claim department window, complaining about my bag being lost. And I said, "You don't understand. I'm going to an event. I need my dress. It's in the bag." And I said, "It's lost. It's somewhere. I don't know where, but it's lost." And the woman was very kind, and she said, "Oh, it's not lost, darling. It's misplaced." I said, "Okay, my bag is misplaced, but where is it? I need it for this event." And she said, "Well, if it's not here in 5 days, then it's lost." I said, "Oh my gosh." So she said, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, "Americus?" And she said, "Americus?" I said, "Yes." She said, "That's a small town. You won't find a dress." And I said, "I think I will." And she said, "What are you doing there?" I said, "It's a really honored to be here. It's a great event honoring Mrs. Carter and all the caregivers that have been working so hard for 30 years. And she said, "Oh yes, they're good people. My husband has Alzheimer's." And I took a moment, I thought, "Oh, there's where my bag went." So I looked at this woman, and she's almost 70 years old. She's working the night shift at Southwest Airlines, hearing the petty complaints of those of us who lost a piece of clothing. And I looked at her name tag and I said, "How you doing, Florence?" And she said, "I'm fine." I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, do you know what the biggest problem is for caregivers?" And I said, "No, what? What could that be?" And she said, "They won't accept help." I was like, "Oh, you know this?" And she said, "Yes, that's the biggest problem." I said, "Well, aren't you lucky? Because you are living in a place where the best help is available to you." And she said, "Well, I'm not talking about me." She says, "Oh, I don't need help. It's that girl over there, see her? This is her second shift. She just started taking care of her mother. And she just will not take any help. But what you gonna do?" And after spending the last couple days with all of you at the summit, in the classes, learning so much, I know what we're gonna do. The smartest, most beautiful people in the world are helping take care of this problem. You'll notice that tonight there are donation envelopes on your table, and you are gonna hear some stories that are remarkable. And if you are moved and inspired, this is an opportunity for you to help further RCI's work supporting caregivers. There's a lockbox in the back on the bar where you can just drop the envelope in, and anything would be just so helpful. So let's get the party started. I would like to welcome to the podium the president of Georgia Southwestern State University, Dr. Neil Weaver.
Good evening, and President Carter, Kathy Cade, and Mike Chokas, and all of the RCI board members, to Lisa Esom, our executive director, and the incredible faculty and staff of the RCI, to our funding partners, to the caregivers and trainers who are with us tonight, to our award recipients, and all of our guests and friends, and especially to Mrs. Rosalind Carter. It is my pleasure, on behalf of the faculty, staff, and students of Georgia Southwestern State University, to welcome you and to congratulate you on 30 incredible years as an institute. If you'll allow me just one moment, I met a couple of really great guys over the last couple of days because of this institute. It's my pleasure to welcome back to campus President Bill Capitan and President Kendall Blanchard. Thank you all for being here. I've been the president here at Georgia Southwestern now for about 4 months. These two men were the president of this institution for about 23 years, 24, 25 years. So thank you all for what you have done, laid the foundation and started and built this great partnership between the university and RCI, and I'm thrilled to step into this position. I hope to continue your work. I also want to welcome my new friend, great friend, Dr. Kim, from our partner in Korea, Cyber University, and our guests from Korea. Thank you all for being here, and welcome to our campus. We all at the university hope that your summit has been successful. We look forward to your next 30 years. You bring great recognition, respect, and accolades to the university, and you bring those from all across the country and all across the world. We thank you, and we cherish this wonderful partnership between Georgia Southwestern and the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving. Thank you and congratulations.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Easton, Executive Director of the Rosalind Carter Institute. We're so pleased to have all of you with us this evening as we honor caregivers and the work of the Rosalind Carter Institute on Caregiving. For 30 years, we've known that delivering care with love and respect is both labor-intensive and personally demanding. So this evening is a special recognition for those caregivers. I'd like to take a moment to recognize a few more people. Former First Lady Rosalind Carter and President Carter. Let's recognize them. Dr. Weaver has already mentioned we've had our colleagues from Korea travel across the world to visit with us today. We've also recognized the Blanchards and the Capitans that have joined us tonight. We're delighted you're here. But we also have our RCI board members. Some of those are here. And I'd like to tell you thank you for your work and your support, board. You're very important to us. Okay. She says I'm not loud enough. Thank you, Ms. Carter. I'd like to recognize a family, the Suber family, sister of Betty Pope, sister of Patsy, and that whole family. They gave a very generous gift tonight to the Rosalind Carter Institute, to the Carter Center, and to the GSW School of Business. Thank you, this family. I would like them to stand so we can applaud them and thank you for your support. Would they all stand, please? Very special. We have some others in the room. Sanford and Vivian Bishop, Representative Bishop, has been Georgia's 2nd congressional district since 1993. We are delighted you are here to join us. And many of you got a copy of today's Caregiver magazine. Gary Barg is here with us tonight. He's the editor, and the front cover is the Rosalind Carter Health and Human Sciences Complex. Beautiful picture. We have some other special guests. If you are a veteran or an active duty service member, can you stand please now and be recognized? Those who have given so much. I have a very important announcement. I'm very excited to announce that the Rosalind Carter Institute of Georgia Southwestern State University and the Veterans Affairs have established now an official partnership through a signed memorandum of agreement to ensure that Operation Family Caregiver is available to caregivers of veterans across the country. This is just the first step in what I know will be a long and fruitful relationship with the Department of Veteran Affairs. And finally, I want to just recognize the Rosalind Carter Institute staff who brought this whole event forward, and the GSW team who gave so much to make this a success. Let's give them a round of applause. And now, please join me in welcoming Craig Kramer, Mental Health Ambassador and Chair of the Global Campaign on Mental Health with Johnson & Johnson. We have been fortunate to have Johnson & Johnson as partners for the past 17 years. Without their support, we could not have been able to accomplish all that we have. On behalf of the Rosalind Carter Institute, we thank you, and please welcome Craig Kramer.
Most of you know Johnson & Johnson as the baby company. I get that reaction all over the world. But over the course of a century, we have become the largest healthcare company in the world, and we touch over 1 billion lives a day, usually in the most important moments of their life. That moment when your toddler scrapes his knee and needs a Band-Aid. That moment when your child needs Tylenol to ease the pain or Benadryl to ease the itch. That moment when you restore your ability to walk with a new hip or knee, or your ability to see through surgery or contact lenses. That moment when your father finds out he has cancer and may need chemotherapy medicine or surgery. That moment when your friend gets that diagnosis of HIV and needs those medicines that have turned AIDS from a death sentence to a chronic condition. And of course, that magical moment when you give your baby her first bath. And in every one of those important moments, there stands a caregiver. And that's why at Johnson & Johnson, when we think about our enormous responsibilities, we think simply and humbly about caring for the world one person at a time, the way the Carters have taught us to do. And that's why we are so honored to have been a partner with the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving for every year of this new century, of this new millennium. And on a personal note, I would like to thank Mrs. Carter for her lifelong commitment to ending the stigma of mental illness. In 2013, on New Year's Day, I got a call from my daughter up in Boston. And I said, "Hey, Catherine, Happy New Year." And then a man's voice came on the phone and said, "This is the Boston police. Your daughter has tried to kill herself. We're taking her to the hospital. You need to get up here right away." I'm happy to tell you that she is doing well today at the age of 29. She survived that suicide attempt and another one a couple of months later. And she's making Mrs. Carter proud by teaching children at a poor high school just outside of Cartagena, Colombia. But it was Mrs. Carter's legacy and the personal intervention of one of your dear friends, David Satcher, who sustained me and my family during those difficult times, and who inspired me to ask my company, Johnson & Johnson, to put its full weight into the effort to end the stigma and end the tragedy of mental illness, and also to have the audacity to suggest that we create a new position called the Mental Health Ambassador, and to suggest that I ought to fill that post, which I have held for the last 18 months, and it has been the privilege of my life to be involved with all of you who are helping to lead this fight. And it has become very much like the LGBTQ movement, where people who live with mental illness are speaking out about who they really are, just as my daughter now does. A week from today, I'll be speaking with her for the first time together as dad and daughter about what we went through and why we need early treatment and early intervention. And it all goes back to Mrs. Carter. And so we are honored to be part of the Caregiving Institute, but also to be part of your movement on mental health. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Craig. Tonight is about celebrating 3 decades of RCI, and we are very excited to bring up the next couple tribute singers. I just gave you a new job. I'm honored to introduce Kathy Cade. A retired investment banker, Kathy was a founding member of the advisory board of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving and currently serves as its co-chair. She is also vice chair of the Board of Trustees of the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia, where she has been a member of the Mental Health Task Force since its inception. Ms. Cade has been a trustee of the Judge Baker Children's Center in Boston, Massachusetts since the year 2000, chairing the board for more than 6 years. Prior to her banking career, Kathy served as director of projects for Rosalind Carter from 1977 to 81, where she led a new staff office in the White House created to support the First Lady's work in mental health, aging, women's rights, and refugee relief. Ms. Cade holds a BA in History and Science from Harvard University and an MBA from Yale University. Kathy, welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much. And I'm really older than I look, happily. President Carter, Mrs. Carter, members of the GSW community, and friends and colleagues of the RCI. It is a real honor for me to be with you this evening, and especially to recognize the caregivers in the room. For each and every day, you live those values that help to build a more caring society, something that Rosalind Carter has been talking about for as long as I've known her, which is more than 40 years. You have the compassion for those who are vulnerable. You bring commitment and dedication to the very hard work for caregiving, and you do so with love and respect for those in your care. As we celebrate tonight the 30th anniversary of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving, it's also a time to honor our founder and my friend, Rosalind Carter. Her caregiving journey has been like many of yours, burdened with the complicated emotions of fear, sadness, sorrow, and even guilt. But there's more to the story than that. She has also known the essential role that family, friends, and faith can play in supporting the caregiver, as well as the blessings and satisfaction that come with caring for a loved one. Her father, her grandfather, her mother, her husband, although he did tell me tonight that she hadn't really cared for him. A little pillow talk later on. And so she is just like all of us, and yet so very different. Today, the term caregiving is part of our common language. 30 years ago, it was not. Nobody studied the needs or problems of caregivers, and there were no programs to support them. There were no natural organizations or notable champions. While there were millions of caregivers in this country, most felt isolated and very alone. It took a woman of extraordinary vision with unbounded compassion and great perseverance to change this situation, and that woman was Rosalind Carter. When asked to lend her support to a new institute at Georgia Southwestern, she acquiesced, but only on the condition that its mission not duplicate her work in mental health, but rather complement it. And then she applied her considerable leadership skills to building a true national center of excellence in caregiving. Rosalind had a very ambitious goal: to create here in Americus, Georgia, a model program for supporting caregivers that could and would be replicated in communities around the country. With deep faith in the power of ordinary citizens to do great things, she and the original RCI staff proceeded to organize the first CareNet. It was a revolutionary step, bringing together family and professional caregivers, giving equal weight to the insights and wisdom of each, developing new opportunities for communication and cooperation among the many agencies and organizations that serve families in need. It is the foundation of the work that we do today. And I'm so proud to say that we now have CareNets all across Georgia, and I know that many of the representatives from the CareNets are here tonight. Yet this was really just the first step. Mrs. Carter has long appreciated the critical role that applied science plays in developing better services. And she has a unique ability that many of you have experienced in this room to enlist the help of experts to join her cause. So the RCI's programs have been strengthened and enhanced through collaboration with hundreds of researchers from universities across the country. As one professor from Penn State wrote, "The RCI has been a pioneer in bringing together peoples working in different areas and problems. The opportunities to share experiences and learn from one another has been great. Without the RCI, none of that would have happened." And here in Americus, Georgia, at Georgia Southwestern, through the generosity of Betty and John Pope, the RCI is also training a new generation of students in best practices in this field. From the beginning, Mrs. Carter dreamed of having a broad impact. So she reached out to national organizations in the health and mental health fields, convening a powerful coalition to bring more attention to caregiving. She's also worked diligently to find funds for expansion. Thank you so much, Johnson & Johnson. Today, these strong partnerships with the Administration on Aging, our new formal partnership with the VA, partnerships with private foundations and public corporations, and we are deeply indebted to J&J for the extraordinary support that they have given to the RCI since 2001. Because of these partnerships, the RCI has been able to initiate projects in over 100 communities in 28 states. And she has even helped to establish an important relationship with the Cyber University in Korea, University of Korea. It's an amazing track record. But the most amazing thing about Rosalind Carter is that she never stopped striving to do more for those in need. The plight of families caring for returning veterans struggling with serious physical and mental wounds was especially distressing to her. When Michelle Obama and Joe Biden launched Joining Forces to encourage more support for returning veterans, Rosalind wrote Mrs. Obama and offered the services of RCI to design better programs to support their family caregivers. She saw a need and she leapt in to fill it. And today, Operation Family Caregiver is helping military families all across the country. So for the last 30 years, Mrs. Carter has led the efforts to transform the RCI, assisted by its very talented and extremely hardworking staff. Mrs. Carter's deep commitment to her own community here in Sumter County and her alma mater, Georgia Southwestern, her dedication to using the best of science to develop better programs and to help caregivers, her persistence in enlisting partners from every sector of our society, all were instrumental in making the RCI the national leader that it is today. Yet, it is her respect for those individuals who on a daily basis perform the hard work of caregiving, for whom it is often a challenging task, sometimes an overwhelming obligation, but also a blessing and a privilege. It is this respect that is perhaps her greatest contribution. She has given a voice to those who have too often been hidden and unheard. She has been willing to use her own influence and national reputation to focus attention on their problems and unmet needs. She has learned from those on the front line of caregiving and has used that knowledge to promote more and better services. There are still millions of caregivers in our country today, many more than 30 years ago, more than 40 million. But today they have a true champion, the Rosalind Carter Institute, and its founder, Rosalind Carter. So please join me in saluting her now.
It is now my utmost honor to introduce a man who truly needs no introduction, the 39th President of the United States, and just as importantly, Rosalind's staunchest supporter and husband for the past 71 years, President Jimmy Carter.
Everybody, thank you. Well, I can't compete with Kathy, that's obvious. In fact, I wouldn't even want to compete with Kathy for Rosalind's love. I think if she had to choose between me and Kathy, it would be a close choice. But luckily, I have a contract with Rosalind. 71 years ago, we signed a marriage contract, and we still haven't violated it. Well, we grew up together in Plains, Georgia, and when Rosa was born, I lived next door to her. And we were acquainted very soon with two different caregivers. Of course, that word was not used in those days. My mother was a registered nurse, and she had reached the pinnacle, I would say, of opportunities for a woman in the professional world. The only possibilities then was for a woman to go into nursing or be a stenographer or be a school teacher. And Mother decided to be a nurse. And she came from Richmond to Plains and trained to be a nurse, and she practiced 12 hours a day in the hospitals and got paid $4 for it. Or either when my father got a little more affluent, my mother practiced 20 hours a day in private people's homes, primarily African Americans who lived near us in Archery, Georgia, near our boyhood farm. So Mother would come home at night at about 10 o'clock. She would change her clothes and take a shower bath and leave instructions for me and my sisters, and she would go back on duty at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was a normal tour of duty for a nurse in those days on private duty. Still, the phrase caregiving was not even known. Rosa's mother soon became a caregiver because when Rosa was 13 years old, her father developed leukemia and ultimately died because of that disease. So both of our mothers were caregivers. My mother was a professional, and Miss Allie Smith was an amateur, like most caregivers are today. Later, I decided to run for public office, and Rosa used her skills and her tenacity and her charm to get me enough votes to be elected governor and then president, as some of you may know. And I've been lucky with that. But since then, we've been home. And when Rosa came home, she was determined to expand her vision and her ability to help people above and beyond what she had been able to do in the White House, working with mental health. Rosa has been the key to mental health improvement in the United States of America and in other countries as well, I'd say for more than 40 years. But about 30 years ago, almost exactly 30 years ago, she started working on a different phase of opportunity to serve people. And that was, as you know, caregiving. And it quickly became a well-known word in the United States. And now the superb help that we get from Georgia Southwestern College, a university now, and the superb help that we get up from all of our local friends at home, and from the great staff that Rosa has, and from people like Johnson & Johnson, the Rosalind Carter Institute has become world famous. We have people from South Korea here that would testify that what I just said is very true. There's a contract between the RCI and the South Korean leaders to educate people on the television and by electronic means. So Rosa's voice and her influence has spread now far beyond a house in Plains, Georgia to all over the world. And I'm very proud of my wife, and I know you are too. Thank you very much. I'm Rosalind's husband.
Love. It's a special night. Let's keep this celebration rolling. I invite you now to sit back, listen to some powerful messages through music. Like many of you in the audience tonight, Vince Zangaro's life was turned upside down when he suddenly found himself in the role of caregiver for his father, Albert, Pops, who has Alzheimer's disease. Vince and his wife, Amy, help Pops enjoy life to its fullest each and every day. They've done this by changing their entire way of thinking. Instead of Pops having to live by their world, they decided to actively live in his. In 2013, Vince got the idea for the Alzheimer's Music Festival, a way to combine his two primary interests, rock and roll and Alzheimer's disease, as a means to raise money to help family caregivers. 2 weeks ago, Vince held his 4th annual festival and has now raised a total of $30,000. Funds go to respite care programs to support families caring for their loved ones at home. Join me now in welcoming Vince and his band to the stage.
I promise this is just water. I want to thank the Rosalind Carter Institute for having us today. For tonight, we've been kind of communicating probably for over about 3 years now through writing and me being a little bit more vocal about being a caregiver and my father with Alzheimer's and my wife. We're right on 14 years. My dad is at home. He's with us, he smiles every day. My dad is a veteran. He's also worked very hard his whole life, lost his wife and my mother in 2001. And that was pretty hard for us. 4 years later, at 62 years old, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I was a 29-year-old punk that just cared about playing music and partying. And when all this happened, I really had to change every outlook. We went nuts for 4 years, lost a lot of friends, lost a house, lost most of our cars, lost savings. We just had to figure out how to make it work. And believe me, there was times, that we were just, going to throw that in the home, and I understand that. But I was able to care for him, so I didn't want to do it. And 14 years ago, like Rosalind must understand, is with her caregiver journey for 30 years now. Applause for that. 30 years of Rosalind Institute and caregiver. I call up bigger organizations and try to get help, and there wasn't a lot. People just didn't really know what to tell you. I was 29, I probably looked like I was 15. With the tattoos, I looked kind of weird. So you'd have these people come in the house and just say, you probably need to put your father in a care facility, and that's okay for people. And I was just like, oh no, I'm not going to do it. My dad's been there for me. We're going to keep on going with this thing. Let's try to keep him home. Let me see if I can get my stuff together. And I was going through some pretty heavy self-medicating at that time. And, just trying to get everything together. And finally, about 4 years ahead, I just stopped making him live in our world. I would take him out to the restaurant, and he would say maybe some curse words. I had waitresses at that point. He was a little combative. And sometimes the frontal lobe dementia that happens, and with Alzheimer's that happens. And when he was a little handsy with people because of Alzheimer's dementia, I'd be so embarrassed. And finally, I just kept on doing it with him, and I just looked at him like, why should I be here? This is a man that worked his whole life for his country, everything. Now it's my time to serve him. So let's just go ahead. And then finally, people started reaching out and being nice to my father and helping him out. And, we spoke about Johnson & Johnson today. It's a funny story that you brought that up. I remember the first time that I had to go to the store for, I like to call them adult undies, for my dad. and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't write in, and I felt very embarrassed. And so I'm asking for adult undies. And so I get home and I get Johnson & Johnson baby powder, cornstarch powder, and I put it on my dad, and I yell at my wife, and I'm like, there's no circulation. It's all white down there. And I freaked out. And then I literally called the hospital. And my wife proceeds to come. She's like, honey, that's baby powder. I was like, okay, so this is the beginning of our journey. So there's going to be a lot of things. And, you know, for 14 years, it's stumbling. It's finding a way on how to do it. And I'm just so grateful that 14 years ago, today, I stuck with it, and now I live in Dad's world, and he does not have to live in mine. And that's the most important thing. I told him I was playing for Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter tonight, and he said, so what? Sorry, I was really excited about it. I gave him a piece of chocolate, and he treated me like an angel. He's like, you're the best son ever. After I did that, so that was pretty interesting. I was going to play, actually, Broken Sword of Life, which is on the program, but I decided to change my mind if that's okay with you. Caregivers feel alone, they feel trapped, they feel isolated. It takes many years to come out of that shell and to kind of understand what's going on in life and where you're going to take the next step and how you're going to improve and be able to live a fulfilled life as a caregiver and help, hopefully, your father. And through all this, I met my wife, Amy Kings and Euro over there. Even with, you know, being a caregiver, she came into my world, which is pretty amazing. So I'm going to play a song tonight. It's slow, but it's kind of going through all the stubborn stuff I did when I was younger, drinking and finding a way out of it to find love, passion, and something that's bigger than myself. This is called Aftermath.
Through the years
wrestling, but I think you guys got the point. Alzheimer's and dementia, being a caregiver at any time isn't always the happiest moments. The best you can do is when you get angry, if you get mad, find patience and then turn that around and give them happy moments. Not happy memories, give them happy moments. That's what I've learned. I don't try to force memories on my father anymore. I try to give them moments. And if you can give that smile on the face, and if he calls me a butt face or whatever he likes to call me at that time, then you go, okay, I'm doing something right. I'm getting through it. He still calls me the dog face sometimes. But you see wisdom through those eyes every day. He taught me how to be a better man. Through his selflessness, his strength, his heartache, his soul. He wakes up every morning. Dad doesn't remember, he remembers the moment and he has a smile on his face. And he wakes up, he gets out of that bed. Like we woke up, what time? About 5 in the morning we wake up. And I get Dad's shower. He doesn't like getting showered. And we get on the toilet and we just have fun and we start smiling and we just start talking no matter what I have to do. We also have a parent, so that helps. The parent's pretty in tune with him. I'm not kidding, it's that love. You guys can look me up on Facebook for real. This bird's pretty amazing. It makes me be a better man. So this is a song I wrote for my family, for all the caregivers, for everybody out there that are doing this. Thank you so much. I'd like to say thanks to Alex Roderick on trumpet, Paul Marlowe on bass, Brad Cole on guitar, and Matthew Charlie on violin. This is called nowhere left to go. be who I am. I want to be a better man. Have the strength to stand to be who I am. I want to be a better man. Have the strength to stand to be who I am. I want to be a better man. Have the strength to stand to be who I am.
It's incredible. Let's give him another round of applause. Vince, thank you for all you do to heighten awareness of Alzheimer's disease and what you do for Alzheimer's caregivers.
Well, thank you guys for everything, for all your inspiration. I can't just believe I got in front of the president and first ladies.
Yeah, we're all kind of walking on water tonight.
I wonder if Jenny will sign my guitar. Secret Service.
Good luck with that. So, all right, let's keep the celebration going. We're going to now honor Georgia caregivers who have made the lives of others better through their care and love. Please join me in welcoming Gail Alston, Director of the RCI Training Center for Excellence, and former First Lady Rosalind Carter, who will be making the awards. We need our chairs. Can we get the chairs? Oh, right here. Come back.
Good evening, or as we say in my native language, hey y'all. Each year, the 12 CareNets around the state of Georgia accept nominations for exceptional caregivers in 3 categories: paraprofessional, volunteer, and family. From those nominations, regional winners are selected around the state. These regional winners are then submitted for consideration by an award committee at RCI for the Georgia Caregiver of the Year in each of those 3 categories. Now, some of these regional winners are here tonight, I believe. Would you all stand to be recognized? Thank you for joining us. I always share with you what a difficult thing it is to make those decisions each year. But this year we had 2 new members of our selection committee. Is okay? Okay, just checking. And one of them came to me after she read the nominations, and she said, "Man, you are right. This is so hard. How do you possibly select one person out of these nominations?" And I said, "Yes, this is the most difficult thing I do every year, but it's also the most rewarding thing I do every year. Not only should every single regional winner be recognized and honored, every single caregiver in the state and really around the world should be recognized and honored." So can we just take a moment and applaud all the caregivers, not only in Georgia, but around our nation and around the world? The Georgia Family Caregiver of the Year. When you're the oldest of 10 children, you learn to take care of others early. She was just 15 years old when her mother passed away. She became her father's greatest help, and the lessons learned in compassion, family values, determination, and organization have served her through a life of loving service to so many in her family and in her community. She retired from her work with children with special needs in 2006 to be available for full-time care of her husband. He has Parkinson's disease with Lewy body dementia and has been bedridden since 2008. Her devotion is only surpassed by her organizational skills as she carries out the multitude of tasks needed to ensure the physical and emotional well-being of her husband of 48 years. For most, the time involved in caregiving at this level would preclude other activities, but not so for this remarkable woman. She continues to be very active in her church. She's a welcome visitor to those who are in the hospital or living in the nursing home in her community, and she's also very present for her children and her grandchildren. In recognition of a lifetime of caring for others, the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving is proud to honor Miss Annie Moore, nominated by the Middle Georgia CareNet as the 2017 Georgia Family Caregiver of the Year. Annie, please come forward to accept your reward. Come on up here, Annie. Yeah, make sure she gets a good picture. There you go. You get a rose? God bless you. Okay. Thank you. Nice to take it. Good, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. The Georgia Volunteer Caregiver of the Year. Isolation. Those of us who live in a rural lifestyle know a bit about isolation. However, not so many know the isolation of living with an incapacitating illness in a rural setting. Our Volunteer Caregiver of the Year has made it her mission to do something about the isolation experienced by the people she serves. Volunteering up to 40 hours per week, she brings joy to isolated seniors and security to their caregivers. Although it's not part of the Senior Companion Program, she often volunteers her time on the weekends so that family caregivers can attend church knowing that their loved one is in very good hands. Her support of others also extends to her fellow volunteers as she often provides transportation so they can attend the volunteer training provided each month. In recognition of her outstanding compassion and dedication, the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving is proud to honor Ms. Linda Morris, nominated by the Northeast Georgia CareNet as the 2017 Georgia Volunteer Caregiver of the Year. Please come forward for your award. Rose. And a check.
Thank you.
And a certificate.
Thank you.
The Georgia Paraprofessional Caregiver of the Year. In 1972, gasoline cost 55 cents a gallon. Digital watches made their debut. I graduated from high school. And our Paraprofessional Caregiver of the Year began his career as a certified nursing assistant. For 45 years, he has provided support and loving care to hundreds of people living in a long-term care facility. His love of the people he serves comes with a passion to see history unfolding through the stories that they share. And as is the case with many paraprofessional healthcare workers, his professional expertise has spilled into his personal life. He cared for his wife until her recent passing, and he continues to lovingly care for his 98-year-old father. With his amazing stamina and love for others, he explains, "I can always use my experience in patient care to care for others in my life." In recognition of 45 years of dedicated service as a certified nursing assistant, the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving is proud to honor Mr. Anthony Marshall, nominated by the Southwest Georgia CareNet as the 2017 Georgia Paraprofessional Caregiver of the Year.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Thank you.
And a certificate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before I rejoin my table, let me say to all the caregivers in the room, you are all superheroes. Not only to the one for whom you care, but to your family, to your community, and to all of society. Please hear me when I say, there are supports out there for you. Use them. There are friends and family who are willing to help. Let them. And there are many ways to take better care of yourself as you care for your loved one. Do them. I know the most important thing in your life is the safety and comfort of the person for whom you care. But tonight, let me remind you how important you are. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome to the podium Laura Bauer, National Program Director for Operation Family Caregiver.
I came prepared tonight, so you might want to get yours out. A dear friend to both President and former First Lady Rosalind Carter, Maddie J.T. Stepanek believed that although we all have life storms, there is a champion within each of us, waiting to emerge and pull us through. During his too brief life, Maddie authored 7 New York Times best-selling books and served as the National Goodwill Ambassador for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. The RCI's Maddie J.T. Stepanek Caregiving Scholarship honors his legacy by supporting those who care for their loved ones. 5 $2,000 scholarships will be awarded tonight to military caregivers, the heroes behind our heroes. For these awards as well, so many have given so much, the final selections were very difficult. I'd like to begin the scholarship presentations with one of Maddie's poems, written when he was only 8 years old, on being a champion. A champion is a winner, a hero, someone who never gives up, even when the going gets rough. A champion is a member of a winning team, someone who overcomes challenges, even when it requires creative solutions. A champion is an optimist, a hopeful spirit, someone who plays the game, even when the game is called life, especially when the game is called life. There can be a champion in each of us if we live as a winner, if we live as a member of the team, if we live with a hopeful spirit for life. Our 2017 scholarship winners are the epitome of that hopeful spirit, and they are most definitely champions for their loved ones and their families. We are so honored to have all of our winners here with us tonight. I'm going to share a few words about their stories and then have them come up for formal recognition by Mrs. Carter. Our first scholarship winner is Krista Klein. Her caregiver story started 15 years ago when she met her husband, Nick. They were high school sweethearts and got married in 2007, 2 months before Nick's first deployment to Iraq. Once he came home, she immediately noticed that something was different. But it took 9 years after that deployment for his PTSD to rear its ugly head. When Nick reached out to share his innermost thoughts with her, she contacted his command and had him admitted, likely saving his life. Krista states that the first 2 months into her caregiving journey were filled with more stress, anxiety, and fear than she thought possible. When searching online for help, she stumbled upon a website for Blue Star families. She signed up for their emails, and a woman called the very next day to invite her to a caregiver's coffee meeting at a Starbucks near base. There she met several other women who had gone through similar situations. She found them to be a beacon of hope as they had successfully come out on the other side. By her third caregiver's coffee meeting, she signed up for her own Operation Family Caregiver coach through Blue Star Families. Her coach, Brandy, became a well-known name in her house, and Krista credits her with teaching her more about herself during the course of the program than she would have imagined. Wanting to be able to help someone who feels as lost as she did before she reached out for help, Krista became a volunteer OFC caregiver coach this March. She wants people to know that Nick reaching out in his own way for help was her impetus for also reaching out. Her advice to other caregivers new to the role, feeling as lost as she did, is this: you can take back your life. The feeling of being overwhelmed will settle. You will be able to breathe again. You will be able to cry happy tears again. Krista, please come to the podium. Our next scholarship winner is Wanda Ickes. In 2014, a family assistance center specialist from the Pennsylvania National Guard referred Wanda to Operation Family Caregiver. She was struggling with caring for her husband, who suffered from traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, their housing situation, finances, and issues from both sides of an extended family. After making it through half of the required sessions of OFC, she dropped out of the program. Her caregiver coach, Lisa, continued to check in with her over the next 2 years, always wondering what she could have done differently to keep her engaged and wishing on a personal level that she could have made more of a difference in Wanda's life. After seeing a local newspaper article honoring Wanda as a new Dole Caregiver Fellow, Lisa reached out to her again to congratulate her. This reconnection led to Wanda re-enrolling in OFC and completing the program. By accepting help, Wanda says she has gained self-confidence, she's renewed her inner strength, and most importantly, has learned that asking for help is not a weakness, but actually shows courage and wisdom to know that you cannot do it alone, nor do you have to. Wanda's newfound confidence and advocacy as a Dole Fellow led to her being chosen to recently testify in front of the Senate Special Committee on Aging, advocating for caregiver-specific legislation and elevating the stories of her peers to the national stage. Picking back up on her higher education plans, she's also been earning credit hours as an intern at her local Operation Family Caregiver site, where she recently completed training and now herself is also a certified Operation Family Caregiver coach. Wanda, please come to the podium. Our next scholarship winner is Letitia Johnson. When Letitia met the man she would marry 17 years ago, she was already caregiving for her ill mother who was in need of a liver transplant. She was also a single parent, working as a full-time preschool teacher. When she reconnected with Anthony years later, they married after a whirlwind courtship. After the first few years of his being out of the military, things became very rough, and Letitia feared losing Anthony to suicide. After his diagnosis with PTSD, Letitia became very proactive, learning everything she could about the disease and joining support groups. But nothing prepared her for his decline as his PTSD got worse and he began suffering other health issues. Stage 3 renal failure, tendinitis, arthritis, multiple back surgeries, migraines, fatigue, insomnia, angina, anxiety, paranoia, and memory loss. Suffering a complete sense of exhaustion, Letitia enrolled in Operation Family Caregiver, and Anthony joined and faithfully attended PTSD groups and anger management classes. They started couples counseling and over time have learned to cope with their new normal. Letitia stopped working to be his full-time caregiver. She says that by reaching out for help, her OFC coach, Wendy, was there to calm her and guide her towards a better life. Her advice to anyone else going through something similar is you are not alone and help is out there. Tuck your fears away and have the courage to reach out for it. It will instantly start making you feel better. Anthony's oldest daughter, Tanessa, told me, Letty is a direct reflection of what this caregiver scholarship stands for. While our family's love for my dad dates back to a time where mental health disability was a foreign term to us, Letty said, I do, to a life where the letters PTSD are a daily struggle. Date nights can have a doctor or therapist as a third wheel, and sometimes the place you call home feels more like your place of work. She is a hidden hero, not only to my dad, but to our entire family. Letitia, would you please come to the podium? Our next scholarship winner is Emily Mather. Even before she became a military spouse, Emily was compelled to write letters and send care packages to service members, over 1,500 of them. At the time she married her husband, Michael, in 2005, he was an F-15 crew chief in the Air Force and had already served 6 years and was on his second duty station. Soon after getting settled, Emily joined the Enlisted Spouses Club and became a key spouse, helping to meet the needs of both spouses and airmen. 4 deployments later, Michael switched to the Army and headed off to boot camp, while Emily stayed on the Air Force Base in North Carolina, continuing her work as a key spouse until the family moved to Fort Polk, Louisiana, where they had just 20 days to settle in before Michael deployed again. Here she became the family readiness group leader for his unit, taking care of 200 families through phone calls, emails, and a monthly newsletter, and creating an information and referral site called Celebrating Heroes. Then the bottom fell out of her world with that dreaded phone call. Michael had been shot in the face by a sniper. Where the bullet entered his chin, it shattered his jaw and exited by his neck. As the FRG leader, she did not have anyone to take care of her. There was no protocol for that. She was supposed to be taking care of everyone else. Caring for his mental and physical needs since 2008, Emily became a Dole Fellow for the state of Ohio in 2014 and has been advocating for military families fiercely. It was in this role that last year she heard Melissa Como speak about Operation Family Caregiver at the RCI's Uniting Forces Summit in Atlanta at the Carter Center. Emily decided then that she needed to do something for herself and enrolled in the program. Having someone in her corner was something she was not used to, and she looked forward to the sessions with her coach, Lisa, learning how to develop her problem-solving skills while learning how to take care of herself. After completing the program, Emily also went through the training and is now a certified Operation Family Caregiver coach. Looking forward to giving back to caregivers who are also in need of self-care and a listening ear from someone who has been there. Emily, please come to the podium. Our next scholarship winner is Dee Blasek. When Dee divorced her husband, Will, on Valentine's Day in 2001, she never expected to have him back in her life, much less living with her again. He was honorably discharged in 2005 with a laundry list of ailments and injuries, pins in his leg, emotional and behavioral issues, and homeless, with no family to support him through the transition from soldier to civilian. Not long after Dee married her second husband, Joe, and he deployed in 2008, she got a call. Will was about to be discharged from the VA hospital in Houston, and with no one else being listed as his emergency contact, Dee was asked if she could take him in. Unable to discuss it with Joe, who was out in the field, Dee had to make a hard and quick decision and brought Will home with her. When Joe finally made contact 5 days later and learned what had happened, he did not give it a second thought by saying, "We are all brothers and no man gets left behind." Dee enrolled in Operation Family Caregiver and quickly became a pillar of the veteran and caregiver community. A second deployment for Joe left him having frequent headaches, mood swings, physical issues, and breathing problems. In January of last year, he left the Army. With Dee's unwavering support, today both Will and Joe are happy, stable civilians. However, the family was recently dealt a heartbreaking blow when their youngest daughter, 7-year-old Sophia, was diagnosed with several serious conditions, including juvenile Batten disease. This horrible disease robs children of life one sense at a time. Not one to crumble during times of adversity, Dee credits her family, friends, and OFC coach Bill with helping her stay in good spirits and tackle her problems proactively. She states, "My life is not often easy, but it is mine, and I would not trade a second of it for anything. This is my normal, and I am stronger for it." Dee, please come to the podium. I'm sure you all heard the common theme of these personal stories. Although these brave women became caregivers in a moment, their realization of being in this new role took a long time to sink in. When it did, they showed real courage by reaching out for help that would sustain them through Operation Family Caregiver. Even more importantly, none of these women allowed themselves to sink into victim mentality. They became the people Maddie talked about in that poem. Someone who overcomes challenges, even when it requires creative solutions. A champion is an optimist, a hopeful spirit. To all the caregivers here in the room with us tonight, you give us all hope. Thank you.
Dr. Lisa Easom, Executive Director of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving.
Named in honor of a great humanitarian, the Rosalind Carter Leadership in Caregiving Award is the highest award giving in the field of caregiving. Generously sponsored by Johnson & Johnson, the award winner receives a cash award of $15,000 and a statuette that was originally commissioned by Val Halamandaris and executed by the renowned sculptor Frank Eliscu, designer of the Heisman Trophy. In March of 2002, the Rosalind Carter Institute published its 6 policy recommendations for averting our nation's caregiving crisis. The Wellness and Caregiver Center of Ventura County at the Camarillo Health District, I'm going to now just refer to them as the district, has addressed all 6 of these recommendations. I want to share with you a small snapshot of their accomplishments. Recommendation 1 is to educate the public about the critical role that family caregivers play in our nation's long-term health care system and the risk associated with serving in that role. The district successfully secured funding for the SCAN Foundation to join a statewide initiative called the Community of Constituents. This movement includes over 700 member organizations working together to transform the system of care so that all Californians can age with dignity, choice, and independence. Recommendations 2 and 3. Assure that caregivers receive evidence-based, effective support services that target their identified needs and support the translation of evidence-based programs into community settings. In order to better understand areas of need in the community, the district conducts a community needs assessment every 4 years. Assessment results provide the opportunity to tailor programming and services to best fit caregivers. Currently, they offer 13 evidence-based programs on their menu of services. Recommendation 4, advocate for tax and public policy changes. To carry out the motto of changing aging through innovative health and wellness services, the district serves as a strong advocate to effect public policy change. The district CEO, Kara Ralston, has served as an appointee by Governor Brown to the Health Professions Education Foundation Board of Trustees, several state industry associations, and meets regularly with elected officials locally and at the state capitol to apprise them of issues and offer support for policy development and refinements. Recommendation 5, target investments that lead to sustainable funding. Identifying sustainable funding through innovative health and community-based care has long been a goal of the district. They are a partner in the California Partners Home Network of community-based organizations, leading the nation in prototyping models to provide social services that support the individual as well as their caregiver in their home and the community. And the last recommendation, 6, provide leadership for coordination of efforts to support family caregivers. During the district's community needs assessment, support for family caregivers was identified as an unmet need. As a result, the district developed the concept of the Caregiver Center. With this vision was shared with the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging, it recognized the value of this approach and decided to sole source the Older Americans Act Title III monies funding to the district to provide these innovative programs countywide. And now the Caregiver Center of Ventura County is now designated as a federal caregiver focal point by the Ventura County Agency on Aging. The Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving is proud to announce that the 2017 Rosalind Carter Leadership in Caregiving Award goes to the Wellness and Caregiver Center of Ventura County at the Camarillo Healthcare District. I would now like to ask Craig Kramer of Johnson & Johnson to join Mrs. Carter on stage, along with Kara Ralston, Samantha Carnell, and Sue Tatalanjo to make their award presentations. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Carter, so much.
This is Carol Austin, our CEO. Photo with all of them. Can you move back up and do a photo with all of them? Okay. I'll let you hold this.
One person who won this award asked us to hire a seat on the airplane for it to take it home.
You can go back to the table. Yeah, go back to the table. Let's have another round of applause for all the scholarship award winners tonight. And for every caregiver that is in this audience this evening. Thank you all for all you do. It's been a really amazing night. We have one more little surprise for you for the night, so if you can just dim the lights for a moment, everybody sit back and enjoy.
Caregiving is everywhere. In your church, your schools, your neighborhood.
Universities, hospitals, on farms, in the inner city, in prisons.
Caregiving does not discriminate.
It affects millions of Americans.
Everywhere. I have seen so many people grieving over loved ones and trying to take care of them but not having any idea what to do.
The Rosalind Carter Institute was started 30 years ago. It remains the only university-based institute focused solely on caregiving.
The Rosalind Carter Institute is the only caregiving organization that addresses both the needs of the professional caregiver and that of the family or informal caregiver.
I'm excited about what we have been able to do. Raise your hand and I'll give you the post. We've developed evidence-based programs. Caregivers have to be resilient enough to be able to see a little bit ahead.
Well, we're going to go on the sidewalk here and we're going to turn around, okay? That way we're done. We don't want to go too far because then you're going to get tired, okay? You remember here? This is a laundry room.
My wife was diagnosed with dementia last year.
Almost there, Mama, almost there. Good job, Mama.
She has to be cared for 24 hours a day. She's also a type 1 diabetic. It's a challenge to keep her going with both illnesses. I can't pay somebody to do it. I don't have that means to do it. My blood pressure went up, my cholesterol went up. It's really, really hard.
I know you always used to go and say hi to your friend, huh? She was your first friend when you moved in here, right?
I used to always go in there every day. And
Well, she was a nice lady, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She gave you those shoes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that Sonia had tried to leave the house in the middle of the night and you knew it because of the chair being moved.
Right. My fear is that one of these times when I'm sleeping, because I'm a deep sleeper.
The fact that the REACH program is an evidence-based program gives them tools to not only care for themselves, but also provide high-quality care. These are techniques that have been validated and proven to assist caregivers in the challenges that they face.
REACH helped me to understand different ways to looking at what I was going through and to help me to pull me through. It saved me.
Today in this country, there are 40 million people who on a daily basis are providing unpaid care for family members or other loved ones. That represents almost $500 billion annually in free care.
In the last 3 years, there were over 100 pieces of legislation introduced. 21 of them passed. They just skimmed the surface of the needs of caregivers. We need more family and medical leave for caregivers. We need tax breaks for caregivers. We need more respite care.
Okay, Daddy. Okay. Good. Okay. My father had suffered 3 falls in a week and a half. I saw where he was totally dependent. It was not an easy decision to leave my job, but I knew that in my heart that it was the best thing.
Good. Muy bien. Okay. Okay, cuidado aquí.
I said I'm willing to do and participate in whatever it takes to better understand my father's behaviors and to better help me learn about the disease and to help me deal with the stress. I was very, very stressed out. Okay, number 1.
As a REACH coach, I feel like I'm making a positive difference. Many of them have found meaning, purpose, and a sense of strength.
After that first meeting with Samantha, I knew that I had someone that was really a caring, nurturing, and listener into my needs as a primary caregiver.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I see my father now the way he is. I too tomorrow may be in that chair.
Right there. 30 years ago, we were talking about the elderly, the tsunami of the aging population. 15 years later, we're in a war where thousands of young veterans were coming back with serious traumatic brain injuries.
This has increased the potential demand for informal caregiving and assistance by military and veteran caregivers.
The best opportunity for a wounded warrior to recover or to improve is a strong, well-supported caregiver.
And so we have to provide that family caregiver not only with resources, but also support for themselves. A great example is Operation Family Caregiver, run by RCI.
They're little boys and they don't understand why 1 minute daddy's perfectly fine and the next minute daddy is raging. You do get to a point where you lose yourself. You are wrapped up into the cycle of the person you're caring for, their symptoms, their ailments. We either stick it out or you leave. And I've chose to stick it out.
Give me a haircut.
Daniel came back and he physically was different. He mentally was different. You could see the stress. It was still as if he was in Afghanistan and he couldn't remove himself from there. I didn't know what to do for him anymore.
How best can I communicate to him? Daniel has a PTSD diagnosis.
I started the coaching sessions and it became more than just surviving.
Operation Family Caregiver is structured in a way that there is this scientific side of it. It's a manualized approach using a specific solution-focused model.
Good afternoon, Florida State Human Resources. Operation Family Caregiver isn't there to say no. Operation Family Caregiver is there to say yes. Yes to you can do this. I'm able to work. I can provide for my family financially. I have a sense of self-worth. If I had not gotten the caregiver support, Daniel and I wouldn't be together. 2 Navy jets, Bravo and Echo, rescued. I don't think Daniel would still be alive.
My dream is to make sure that everyone in the world knows that there's a program out here that exists to help companion, coach them, walk them through some really difficult and challenging times.
I could never show Wendy enough gratitude, enough love, enough hugs and smiles for what she's done for our family and what Operation Family Caregiver did for us.
Hold the rail.
At some period in their life, everybody is either a caregiver or will need caregivers. That takes in everybody.
Todavía ves, yeah, you can still see.
People all over our country are caring for someone.
You all find a really beautiful commemorative glass on your table. This is yours to take home with you tonight. But I ask you now to please stand and raise it in a toast. Congratulations, Mrs. Carter, and everyone at the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving for working tirelessly to better the lives of caregivers across the world these past 30 years. Mrs. Carter, from all those who have been caregivers, all those who are currently caregivers, all those who will need caregivers, but most importantly, all those caregivers who will benefit from the insights and guidance of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving in the future, we thank you. Yay. Thank you all. This has been a great night, memorable night. I'm so happy that you were all here. I'm so happy I was here. Thank you all for everything you do. Enjoy the rest of the day. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Mrs. Carter would like to say a few words. Sorry. My bad. Can we turn the mic on down the floor, please? So sorry. Oh, there you go.
Well, the staff said they made it easy for me. I only had one time that I had to make remarks in this whole summit, and it was to welcome everybody. But I couldn't, after this wonderful summit, not say a few words. To thank everybody for all you do, the caregivers who are here, those who are working with the caregivers. I want to thank all of you for the wonderful work you do, helping people have a better life. And that's what the Rosalind Carter Institute does. That's what the word we spread throughout the whole country and in other places too. We have the South Koreans here with us tonight. What a summit. It's supposed to be celebration of 30 years of RCI. So what was the first night? A video of my life. It was good. A couple of little mistakes. One was that when Jimmy told me he was going to run for political office, I cried. I didn't cry. I was so excited. I don't know why. But it did lead to some wonderful experiences for me. And then all the wonderful caregivers, it was so good listening to them. We heard so many wonderful stories, really, really emotional, and I think you saw a little bit of that tonight when Laura was talking. It's really emotional knowing what some people have to go through it, and to think that we can make it better for them. It's really quite wonderful. And then tonight has been exciting for me. I just want to thank the university. All the presidents have been supportive of the Rose and Carter Institute. And I get the glory, and everybody else does all the work. I have a great, great staff. And the Rose and Carter Institute has done a lot of good, but when Lisa came and took over, she's a great leader. And RCI just really took off. I'm so thankful for Rita and all the staff. Can you give my staff an applause? Thank Johnson & Johnson. They have been so supportive for so many years, and I'm just deeply grateful to them. And actually, we have Craig here tonight, but we also have two Johnson & Johnson people that came, and we got to love them, and they retired, and they came back tonight anyway, even retired, so we're glad to see them. I want to thank the Subas family. Contributions are so important to our work, and I'm just deeply grateful for Betty Pope and her family for the contributions they've given to the work. And I think the last thing I want to say is, pick up the envelope on the table and put a contribution in, and be generous. The more you contribute, the more people we can help have a better life. It's really important for us. So thank you all for a wonderful experience, and good night.